How are y'all doing today? My name is Tyler. I'm going to be presenting AI officiating in sports analytics. Just for a quick raise of hands, who all here have watched sports? Just for an idea. And who all here has played a sport? Good amount, actually. So, what is the problem in AI officiating? So the problem is whether or not artificial intelligence and AI and machine learning should replace human officiating in sports in order to potentially improve the accuracy and fairness of the sport. And just as a side note, AI officiating is a direct application of sports analytics, and a lot of the systems that are using that use AI in officiating, they are collecting data, and that's a direct application of sports analytics. Just a few quick definitions. Officiating means to administer the rules or a game of a game or sport, especially as a referee or umpire. And AI, of course, as we all know, artificial intelligence is the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human beings. So my point of view is as a computer science student here at UNC Charlotte. I played baseball up until college, and I watch a lot of sports professionally in college. Obviously, being on the losing end of a bad call is not something that's fun. And what is the purpose of the presentation? The purpose of the presentation is to explore some of the different perspectives of AI in officiating. So looking at some of the history of AI in officiating, first we start off with NFL Instant Replay. This obviously didn't have any AI at the time as it was introduced in 1986. But it was the first form of official review in a real live game. Then we had Hawkeye introduced in 2005 in tennis, which is still being used today. This is a simple software AI application that essentially detects or tracks the ball, whether or not it's in or out of the white lines. Then we have Video Assistant Referee, also known as VAR, which is introduced in 2016. In soccer, this helps with determining offside penalties and handball penalties. And then we have the automated ball strike system, which has most recently been introduced in 2019. This is going to be able to detect balls and strikes on close calls. And I'll be showing you an example of the automatic ball strike system. And in case anybody's unaware, this box is the strike zone. If the pitch lands within the box, it's a strike. If it doesn't, it's a ball. So I want you guys to watch this. I'm going to pause it midway through, and I want you guys to determine if the pitch was a ball or a strike based on your judgment.
Good, Rick.
So the umpire calls ball there. How many of you guys agree that the pitch was a ball? And there's no wrong or right answer, just raise your hands. And how many would say it was a strike? Let's see what the AI says.
Breaking ball just misses. Brett Sullivan get a challenge.
Ball call.
At the ABS system. Ooh.
Call is surprisingly correct. 3.
So as you can see, the software system is able to show exactly where the ball landed, able to show how far off it was from being a ball, which is important, as we'll get into it later. It's able to explain its decision, and instead of just saying ball or strike, it's able to show you why it was one of those.
Tyler, where is the camera for the computer vision? Where is it set up mechanically?
That's a great question.
Oh.
I've not looked into it. I imagine they take multiple angles,
Yeah.
but I would imagine the primary angle would be like behind the pitcher or behind the umpire.
Yeah, I was just wondering where the camera would be. Yeah.
They usually have two like on the sides of the field and then one up top on that area. And they're like looking down at that.
Okay. So and they just scale it in. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. So next we'll get into some of the pros and cons of using this AI in officiating. So based on the video we just watched, who can give me maybe some of the pros or benefits of having AI in officiating? John?
It kind of gets rid of the bias that a referee might have.
Absolutely.
You know, the MLB's known for like bad calls sometimes, so I think.
So more fairness, essentially. Anybody else?
I guess for the edge cases, the referee will be able to determine.
Absolutely. So like technical calls where it's really close. Yeah. Anybody else? So essentially what John said, fairness, this is reducing potential human bias. Of course, AI can also have bias, but I would argue that AI is less likely to have bias than human. And we have accuracy, similar to what this gentleman said. It's going to be, AI is going to be more accurate, it's going to be able to look into it more carefully than a human eye can. And faster decisions, of course, an AI is able to process things quicker, a computer is able to process things quicker than a human, rather than a human having to go potentially look at an instant replay and determine whether or not the call was correct. Let's do the same thing, but maybe some of the cons or drawbacks. Beta?
Yeah, so Tyler and I were talking about this during our consultation, where it kind of takes away the culture of the sport, having the ref there, having them call, getting mad at the ref, you know, just it takes away kind of the magic of the sport when you're involved technology and AI in it, and it takes away the human aspect.
And it makes it more robotic.
Yes.
It takes away the human element. Anybody else?
I assume that it's pretty expensive to implement and maintain.
It would definitely be expensive to implement. I've not looked at the prices, like price costs or whatever. But yeah, I could imagine having that for every single game maybe could potentially be possible.
So this is, I would say, better for the business, but worse for the fan. So I think, at least in the NBA, there's like cases like, say like 20 years ago, I think it was Kings versus the Lakers. The Kings arguably should have won. Like the Lakers had an inordinate amount of like fouls awarded to them, so they had a lot of free throws. And when people look back at the game, they can agree that the Lakers shouldn't have made the finals, but the Lakers making the finals is better for the NBA because it's just such a bigger market than the Kings are. So obviously it's worse for the fans, but might be better for the business overall.
For sure. And I'm not familiar with your exact example, but I can definitely think of other examples, especially with maybe the Chiefs making the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. They're known for getting calls in their favor. So that is kind of relates. So looking at some of the cons here, you have security risks, of course. These AI systems can potentially be vulnerable. If somebody were to get into them, they could potentially favor one team rather than the other. Also, these systems may collect immense amount of data from players, and if that data ends up in the wrong hands, that could be harmful to them. The lack of trust from the public, similar to what some of you guys said. As with all things, the public isn't too fond of change, and I also have breaking of tradition down there, which kind of goes hand in hand. If something that's been there since the beginning of sports, and that being human referees and umpires, if you change that, the public is not going to be too fond of that. So you ideally probably want to find ways to slowly introduce these AI officiating systems. And also robotic officiating, similar to what Peter said, it kind of takes away the human element, makes things just really robotic, and whether we like to admit it or not, controversial calls do make the game more interesting overall, in my opinion. So what are some of the solutions to AI officiating? I would say we have to find a balance between humans and AI. We have to use it as an assistant and not a replacement. We've already seen this with some of the systems being implemented already. It's more of a tool rather than completely replacing. We obviously still have umpires and referees on the field to help make calls. We have to train officials to work with the AI, which obviously goes hand in hand with that. And we have to improve the transparency of AI. It has to be able to explain why it's making these calls, and without any question or doubt that it's making the right calls. Similar to how we saw with the ABS, the automatic ball strike system, where it's able to show you why it's a ball. It was 1 inch off of the strike zone.
Wouldn't it also be a way, I know there was an umpire that got older and his eyes got bad, and it's a way to evaluate their performance, not only when it gets to a point that it's, I know they have a margin of error that's acceptable, you know, in the NBA and some of the other places, but I wonder if this is a way to kind of measure that.
Right, yeah, and I saw something the other day, it kind of showed, it said that if your name is known as an umpire or referee, it probably means you're not doing a very good job. So if you're making bad calls consistently, then certainly AI could potentially help with that. So, what is the conclusion here? AI will never be perfect. It's always going to have its vulnerabilities. It's always going to have a slight margin of error. But I'd argue that it is more efficient and consistent than humans. The balance, though, is key. We must have a balance between humans and AI when it comes to officiating in sports. And what does the future look like? I think we just have to keep implementing the systems we've already been working on, where it's more of an assistant rather than a complete replacement, such as the ABS system, the VAR system in soccer, and the other ones we looked at. So here are my references, and do we have any questions? Thank you guys.
Okay.